Being as we're hearing next from the Digital Minister of Taiwan, of course it is remote, of course it is appropriate that she's speaking to us digitally. She's going to play a video first, Audrey Tang, and then we'll get to have a conversation with her afterwards. So I know she can turn and look at me, but if we play Audrey's, this is very strange having a conversation with a robot. Hi Audrey, hi! So let's go straight into Audrey's video.
Unlike many people today, I'm an optimist. This strange condition began when I was 15 years old. That was 1996. I discovered that the future of human knowledge is on the web, and my textbooks are all out of date. So I told my teachers I want to quit school and start my education on the World Web. Surprisingly, the teachers all agreed with it. Then I founded a startup working on web technologies, and I get to join this fabulous internet community that runs with this crazy idea. An anarchistic, no-one-was-in-control political system that powers the internet till today. Today, I'm Taiwan's first digital minister. I'm putting into practice the ideas that I learned when I was 15 years old. Rough consensus, civic participation, and radical transparency. Surprisingly, it's working, and it's transforming our society. In the spirit of participation, I would like to ask you to enter this website on your phone on a browser. Slido.com. That's SLIDO.com. This website will ask you to enter an event code, and it's the number you see here on the screen. That's today's date. Once you're in, you can ask me anything, and if you see a question from someone else that you also like me to answer, you can like that question. I will answer the questions right after this 10 minutes talk, starting with the questions with the highest number of likes. In 2014, there was a live demo of mass participation. We occupied the parliament for 22 days. At the time, the MPs in Taiwan were refusing to deliberate a trade service agreement with Beijing, and so the occupiers got into the parliament at night and stayed there. For 22 days, we demonstrated how to deliberate a trade service agreement with the whole society. There were over 20 NGOs participating, the Greens, the Labours, the Independents, everybody. We supported this whole deliberation effort with a radically transparent broadcasting, live streaming logistics system, and it was powered by this community called GovZero. GovZero is a civic tech community with a call to fork the government. We take the government websites, which all ends in gov.tw, and make better, open alternative that ends in g0v.tw. For example, the annual national budget is 100 pages long in a PDF file, and it's very hard to read. The GovZero community's very first project was budget.govzero.tw, which shows the national budget in a way that everybody understands, and you can drill down to each and every budget details. Today, this system is adopted by 7 city governments, and it powers the participatory budget platform for the Taipei City at budget.taipei. Anyone can just look at this map, find a part of city budget that they care, and type in any question that they want to ask, and a career public servant actually comes forward and answers for that part of the question. So it becomes a direct dialogue platform, not through the city council, but for the career public servants to communicate with citizens. So why are there so many civic hackers in Taiwan like me who spoke to my clients during the Occupy movement saying, okay, I have to take a 3-week leave because democracy needs me? I think it's because, well, I'm 36 now, we're the first generation that enjoyed freedom of speech after 3 decades of martial law and dictatorship. That freedom arrived in 1989, the year of personal computers. So for us, the personal computer revolution and freedom of speech is the same thing. Our first presidential election by popular vote in 1996 is also the year that the World Web got popular. So internet and democracy, they're not two things, it's one and the same thing in Taiwan. And so for the past 30 years, when we see free software, we always think of freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and never free of cost. We know that freedom is never free of cost. Our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation paid dearly for it, and we need to use the software freedoms to keep it free, as we did during the Occupy movement in 2014. And the movement caused a revolution, although a peaceful revolution. There was a radical transformation of social expectations at the end of 2014, and many occupiers just found themselves elected mayors when they did not expect it. And because of this, the Prime Minister resigned, and the new Prime Minister and engineer said, okay, from now on, crowdsourcing and open data are just going to be the national direction. So the occupiers and the civic tech people who supported them were then invited as mentors, as advisors to the public service to solve issues like Uber. Now, Uber is very interesting because it is a meme, a virus of the mind. The meme was called sharing economy, and it says that algorithms dispatch cars better than laws, and so we don't have to obey laws. The meme spread through apps, from drivers to passengers to drivers. And you can't really argue with the meme, just like you can't argue with the flu. It's not in the same category. And so there's protests. The taxi drivers surrounded the Ministry of Transport and demanding negotiation. But how do we negotiate with the virus of the mind? For us, the solution is through a deliberation that involves thousands of stakeholders. It's a scaling down of the deliberation we just did with 500,000 people during the Occupy, and so we think we can do it. Deliberation, thinking deeply about something together, is an effective vaccine against the virus of the mind. And when everyone listens to each other and form a consensus, we become immune to divisive PR campaigns in the future. A proper deliberation with the focused conversation method involves 4 stages. The first stage is facts, where we collect evidences, first-hand experiences, and objective data. And then after that is confirmed, we move to collect everybody's feelings about those same facts. You may feel angry, I may feel happy, it's all okay. And after people converge on their feelings that resonates with everybody, we then talk about ideas. The best ideas are the ones that address the most people's feelings. And then we translate those ideas into legalese and sign them into decisions. However, if the decision-making process is not transparent, people on the street would speak a different language than people in the government. We need mediators, we need facilitators, because otherwise people are not even agreeing on basic facts, let alone each other's feelings. In that situation, ideas become ideologies, virus of the mind that blinds people to new facts and to each other's feelings. And so our first step is open data, that is making all the facts available, not just numbers, but also meeting records, study analysis, and ask the private sector and the civil society to share what they have. Next, we created an interactive survey on Polis to ask how people feel about those facts. We sent all the stakeholders a Polis survey at the same time to ensure a diverse group of participants. 4 groups of people soon emerged: taxi drivers, Uber passengers, and other passengers. And the Polis system shows each group how well their shared sentiments are received by other groups, encouraging participants to contribute ever more inclusive statements that show up as majority opinions. And the interesting thing is that it lowers people's antagonism, because you can see all these people on different sides are actually your Facebook and Twitter friends. You just didn't talk about this over dinner. So over 3 weeks of time, people actually converged on the center. At the beginning, the people were on all the different corners, but because we say we only give binding power of anything that people can propose that can convince a supermajority, that's 80% of people, people compete to bring better ideas that resonate not only with like-minded people, but across the aisle. And after we get a set of feelings that resonates with practically everybody, it's now much easier for the government to meet with all the stakeholders and check with them one by one. Here is the consensus of the people. Do you agree? And if you do agree, how do we translate into law? They're bound to the words that is said during the live stream consultation, and so the stakeholders agreed. When we ratified their agreements in August 2016, everybody knew that it's coming, and everyone anticipated it. So today, Uber operates legally under the new framework, but so do the taxi companies who are now adopting the same model that Uber is using for dispatching its cars. So this method works. Now the next question is, can we scale this process of listening? Right after the ratification, I joined the cabinet as the digital minister to explore this possibility through PDIS, the Public Digital Innovation Space. We're like policy labs in the UK at a national level. We have designers, programmers, and we're automating away a lot of those chores of the public service. We're bringing radical transparency to the cabinet. By that, I mean all the journalists and lobbyists get to ask me questions, but I only answer publicly. And it's not just to them, but also for internal meetings. For all the hundreds of internal meetings that I had since I was the minister, everything was transcribed and published. The written record was for everyone to edit for 10 days, and then we publish it. The effect is very surprising. The bureaucrats actually become very innovative and risk-taking, because previously, the minister get credit if things go right. But now, with radical transparency, if things go right, they get credit because their name was on the transcript. And because this is experimental, if things go wrong, it's all my fault. So under this condition, they become innovative and open to a lot of very interesting ideas. One of those ideas is adopting the same technology the free software community is using as our internal communication platform. So we use Etherpad, we use EtherCalc, we use a command board called Weekend, we use RocketChat. And previously, the roadblock was on cybersecurity, but we were able to find the Sandstorm.io, a community platform that solves the cybersecurity problem through sandboxing. Our cybersecurity department audits it, and now all the free software that runs on top of it doesn't suffer from the cybersecurity issues. And we have a lot of interesting systems written by young public servants, like an app for ordering lunch together or to plan travels together, and it's really good to have this choice. Also, we had a e-petition platform for people to participate online. It's like the We the People platform in the US. It did not receive much attention because for cross-ministry issues, people would just get those very blank, very bureaucratic answers that doesn't really solve their problem but just explains why they can't do much about it. And after I became the digital minister, we asked each ministry to send a team, at least one person, to serve as participation officers. We assembled this virtual team of 50 people online using RocketChat and all those tools for online engagement. So now in Taiwan, when people start a petition, they know that instead of just a dutiful response, they will actually get to meet with all the relevant ministries, either in Taipei, or we will travel to those rural areas and islands if they're petitioning for local development. Together, we solve a lot of very interesting problems like this without exposing any public servants to risk, and so we relieve their fear, uncertainty, and doubt around civic participation. The idea is that voting and collectivism is very easy. Everybody can do it, but there's not much bits. And through open data, through having interactive Q&A forums, by setting up binding processes, and by bringing the technology to people instead of asking people to use technology, we're building a deliberation system that scales to all levels of the society. And through this, we're building a unified democracy not hijacked by ideologies, an efficient democracy that responds to the demands of the society, and an empathetic democracy that lets people take care of each other's feelings. And we do this just by listening and building technologies that help us listen to each other. Thank you for listening.
Because of the light in your face now. Okay, there's several questions that came in. So do you want to take any one that you particularly feel that would be one that you pick to answer?
Well, it's crowdsourced, so I'll just abide by people's.
Great.
Right. As I promised at the very beginning. So can you see the highlight? The Taiwan's education system. All right. So I just start answering them. Yes. Before joining the cabinet as official minister, I was part of Taiwan's K-12 curriculum committee. And we designed a curriculum for the first time that instead of building just skills and scores and whatever, the curriculum is now moved to place autonomy, communication, and common good as what we call virtue-based or literacy character-based education system. And the result of this is that first, we're repositioning teachers as co-learners with students, and we're deliberately trying to let them know that it is inappropriate to compare students on any given dimension. Instead, we put much more emphasis on cross-school, even team building, and so that's a really big change that's going to roll out in the next year or so. And the classroom question, that's a great question. We actually took a special budget to refit every K-12 school with high bandwidth communication, like 300 megabits or more, and also ensure that every two classrooms have a projector. And the thinking behind this is that because we're going to see a lot of AI, a lot of assisted learning in the next few years rolling out to the classrooms, it would be very difficult if the rural areas doesn't get sufficient teachers and so on. So we're actually now using augmented reality and other technologies to merge classrooms together so that kids can co-design or co-create projects. And this is kind of an unfair advantage of Taiwan because we're really small and our internet penetration is like one of the highest in the world. So it's very easy to say, internet broadband access is human right, and then just get the rest like 2% or 3% on board. So that's how we're tackling education. Is it okay if I just move on until the time runs out?
Yeah. Yes, please do.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, how can the public sector attract more technologists? Often the private sector's big paycheck win out. Indeed, I took like a, I don't know, my current salary is like 1/5 of what I was paid. But I think it's worth it because above a certain paycheck level, it doesn't really matter that there's one. And also, technologists are naturally attracted to having real social impacts. And so just like any other social enterprise, I think the government need to be very clear about its social mission, how it does to fulfill the social mission, and be very inclusive in a cross-discipline way. And so I think that the key of talent retainment really is just to have everybody know what everybody is doing. And this kind of working out loud is kind of difficult to implement a traditional workspace, but very easy if it's a digital workspace, which is why I'm trying to kind of upload everybody to the digital workspace. What are your thoughts on the recent election hacking? I'm not quite informed on the whole story, so I will refrain from saying anything. But of course, I'll say the obvious, which is as much as cybersecurity is important, cybersecurity of the mind against virus of the mind is even more important. This is also why we design into the curriculum not just ICT literacy, but also media literacy, critical thinking as part of the curriculum. It's not just a 2-hour class that you take. It is actually rolled into every single field. So the textbook, the teachers are actually co-learning with information coming from the internet and teaches critical thinking and learns it along with children. I think that's really, in the long term, the only way to win against this misinformation thing. All the technological thing we do nowadays, the fact checking and so on, it may be useful in the kind of spam war, adding a little bit of friction kind of way. But in the long term, it does take critical thinking so that people won't believe things just because it's printed in some font or spoken in some authoritarian voice. The best ideas are the ones that address most people's feelings. How does this approach address concern of marginalized communities? Well, the idea is ambient computing. It's assistive technology. It's taking the deliberation system to them, right? So like this Thursday, I'm flying out to the Penghu Island, one of the remote islands in Taiwan, because we're settling a dispute between the divers who want the marine park to be banning fishing and the local fishers people. And now, of course, if we ask everybody to come online and vote and so on, it will be totally inappropriate and disproportional. But because we're bringing this whole 360 camera gear, this whole transcription, mind map, everything to the people. So for the people, they're just speaking like they speak naturally on the town hall. And we use the principle of comm technology to make sure that just like Slido, everybody know what's on topic at the moment. And it's just, transcribed automatically into this live feed and making sure that people in Taipei and everywhere in the world can participate intelligently into this conversation. So the idea is to bring text to people, not to ask people to come to tech.
We just have one more.
Is there a dialogue?
We just have one more.
One more question then. Okay. Well, so I do actually teach classes like this one in the areas of the People's Republic of China and like Sichuan or Hangzhou, and I even connected the virtual reality classrooms together with people in Kaohsiung. So as long as it's digital, I think, and it's open source, there really is no, fear of conflict escalating or something. So even after I become digital minister, I'm very happy to share what I learned on virtual deliberations and on Sandstorm and on other things with people everywhere in the world, including China. And that's it.
That's great. Let's give her a round of applause.